And the scratching at the window, that's very unsettling. You know, let me in, scratch, scratch, all this mist and fog and stuff like that, and then just the floating into the room once it's been invited inside.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Stephen King Cemetery Club. Hi guys, welcome to the Haunted Valley. Today we get to talk about the 1979 miniseries Salem's Lot. So we open with David Soul. He is the main attraction of this TV miniseries. Even though James Mason was a large star, I am guessing that because it's in the TV realm, David Soul outranked him because of Starsky and Hutch fame. So I love Starsky and Hutch, and I really like David Soul and Paul Michael Glaser a lot. So I don't care that he is not the way that Ben is described in the book. In the book, he has dark hair, he is more intellectual looking, not really California boy with blonde hair, blue eyes, that kind of thing. But I really do like David Soul. I think he's a good actor. Ayres is driving through Salem's Lot, and they've changed it up a little bit. Apparently he was born in Salem's Lot and he's gone away and has come back. So, and his aunt worked in the Marston house. All that is different from the book. The town itself, I really like. It reminds me a lot of the town that they used in Jaws. So the Salem's Lot / Amity Island town vibe, I really enjoy. Ben and Susan have their little meeting in the park, which I'm really glad they kept. It was very cute the way that Ben walks up to Susan. He sees that she is reading his book and his photo is on the book jacket. There are so many characters in the Stephen King novel, and what they did is they took some of the more important ones and they combined them with other important characters and then just left it at that, which makes sense because in a 3-hour miniseries, you want to focus more on the action. You don't need a whole bunch of extra characters running around. It's just better for the audience to keep track of things, and it keeps everything moving along. So I think that was a good decision on their part. In this movie, the Marston house is more evil than the Marston house of the book. There is a more sinister background that was written for the movie. The guy who built it, he killed his wife and a servant. Hubie Marston killed his wife and his sister-in-law, I believe it is. I really like the scene where Jason and Ben are talking about the evil house attracting evil men, and then Ben comments because he's concerned as to why this house has attracted him. Because if it seems to attract evil men, does that say something about him? You know, it's very unsettling for him.
But if a house attracts evil men, why did it attract me?
Barlow arrives to Salem's Lot in the same way that he does in the book. Men pick him up from the dock. He's been shipped over and he gets loaded onto a truck and brought to the Marston house. Well, in the movie, the crate that he's in is like emanating cold. It is cold to the touch, and the box kind of moves on its own. It shifts around, that kind of thing. In the movie, there is great use of freeze frames. There are shadowy, creepy figures that kind of pop into frame between the camera and an actor. So you see someone looking in horror at the audience, and then something pops up, like something dark and shadowy, or with a claw hand, something like that. And I think that it adds to the camp factor, but I also like that. There's also usually exaggerated music, and I would actually be interested in listening to this soundtrack. So some of the effects that I like the most have to do with the vampires themselves. When Ralphie is outside the window and there's just all this mist, He's floating there. His face is creepy and very chilling because he's kind of enjoying himself. So it's that unsettling grin that you see. There are so many good, memorable interactions between certain people. Danny and Ralphie, that whole thing where Danny invites Ralphie in at home, and then later he invites him into the hospital room, and that's what kills Danny. Danny and Mike Ryerson, when Mike is burying him and he stops, uncovers Danny, and then Danny, there's a great turning of the camera. Of course, Danny and Mark, when Danny tries to get into Mark's house and Mark denies him, that's also a really good scene. That's possibly one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie.
Go away. Go away!
I really, really like the vampire eyes. Now, I don't know what effects they used to get those highly reflective, glowing eyes, but the contact lenses very much remind me of The Incredible Hulk, the TV show, and they're really, really cool. I really like the effect that they have with that glowy eye. And these vampires are not glamorous vampires. They die and they instantly look like they have been around the block. Like their teeth are yellowy and brown stained. The fangs are very overdone, I think. They're not subtle, and everyone has kind of a sickly grayish tinge. They're ugly vampires. Let's just put it that way. Jason's house, when he goes upstairs to confront Mike Ryerson, another one of my absolute favorite scenes. I've noticed that he had like 6 doors in the hallway up there. And Jason, he's not married, he doesn't have kids, he's a school teacher. Why does he have so many rooms? I'm wondering if that was a redressing of the boarding house set where it has a hallway with a whole bunch of rooms off the hall, because it just seems very weird that he'd have a 2-story house with so many rooms upstairs. I don't know. I guess I don't know his life. The iconic scene where Mike Ryerson is messing with Jason Burke and he's saying, "Look at me," over and over and over in that creepy hiss.
Look at me. Look at me. Look.
2 hours into the movie, we get the Barlow face reveal. And I think you either love it or you hate it. I love it. Tim thinks that it's ridiculous. And he has even dubbed Barlow Nosferatu. So we do see Barlow. He is not what Stephen King wrote. Barlow is bluish, like a Smurf, and he has just these crazy teeth. Like all of his teeth are fangs, and his longest teeth are the front teeth. So what you would normally think of with the incisors, those are his front teeth, which is a bizarre choice. And this is coming from someone who really likes Barlow. But he is very primal. He is more like a monster, like a creature who is working only from the id. In the book, he is eloquent. He is more of a traditional courtly man with, fancy dress, and this is an interesting choice, the fact that they kind of made him more like Frankenstein's monster. So if you've ever watched the movie Frankenstein, which I saw before I read the book, or in any pop culture stuff, you know, Frankenstein's monster walks around, he groans and he grunts, and that's it. But if you actually read the novel, he is very well spoken, the creature. He is just so eloquent, and he has such emotional range. It was very shocking to me the first time I read that. It's not what you expect given all the pop culture stuff. So it's interesting to me that they kind of made Barlow a type of universal monster type thing. I think James Mason is more the fancy British guy who has kind of more of a Dracula type vibe to him. But in this, it's almost like he is the owner of Barlow, who's kind of like a pet, like a dog kind of thing. Even though Straker does say that Barlow is the master, but it does seem very bizarre. So we have that iconic scene where the Petries are talking to Father Callahan in their kitchen. All of a sudden, a light bulb explodes. I think this scene is overdone before Barlow gets there. There's just like this, everything rattles, the china, everything breaks and falls over and moves, and it's like an earthquake is happening in their house, which seems ridiculous and is unnecessary to me. I find it very unnecessary. And then Barlow somehow, like, the window breaks, there's this flat disc on the ground, which is like a cloak, and we get this reverse Wicked Witch of the West. So, you know, she melts down into nothing. Barlow starts from that, and he emerges and is like this big spindly scarecrow type thing, and he rises up from the floor and fills out his clothing. That also seemed really weird to me. I don't know why that happens. And then he immediately takes the Petries and smashes their heads together and kills them. And it's a very, very unconvincing death. The scene with Marjorie Glick where she rises is something that has always stuck with me, and I think that the actress did a very good job, especially like when she's just under the sheet and you can't tell who's under there exactly or what she's gonna look like, and it's very jarring because she starts moving and all you can see is her moving and making the sheet move.
I will fear no evil. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Daddy? Where are you, Daddy darling?
James Mason was an interesting choice for Straker. I don't think that he is very believable in the role, only because he is such a slender, slight man, and he takes he takes Bill Norton, and he grabs him by the shoulders, grabs him by the arms, pins his arms, lifts him, walks him down this long hallway, and proceeds to shove him onto a wall of antlers. And Bill gets impaled, but the strength that someone would have to do all that, it's just not convincing that James Mason has that capability. And especially because when they're discussing how to kill him, Ben says, you know, he's the watchdog for Barlow. He is just a man who can be killed. And in fact, they shoot him, and it takes several shots. So he's not technically supernatural. So I don't understand. He could be strong, but he can't be that strong. When we get to the cellar, the coffin is actually in the Marston house. It's not in Eve's boarding house like it is in the book. And they did try to do the sawing of the stairs to make people fall. And it's just, the flight of stairs is so small that I don't feel like it was very effective. And all it did was kind of twist Mark's ankle. When they pull the coffin out, I love that you could see these kind of disjointed vampire bodies laying around the coffin in the root cellar. And when they haul out the coffin and Ben starts staking Barlow, which is not bloody at all. So I understand it's a TV movie, but it seems like there would be some blood. There's definitely blood in the book. But while Ben is doing that, he hits a light fixture above him and it starts swaying. So it creates like this strobe effect, but not an annoying fast one. It's just a slow strobe. And you can see all of these vampires that start waking up and start crawling up the door, and Mark is sitting there and they're coming from behind and he has no idea, but we can see every time the light swings that they're getting closer and closer. That is a brilliant scene. I really, really love that. I love anything like that. So like when Laurie Strode is hanging out and Michael Myers is behind her and it just starts getting just light enough that you can make out Michael Myers' face. I love that. That is such a great effect. Anyone who does that, I appreciate that. The disintegrating Barlow face is amazing. So I don't know how they did it.
Susan.
Big difference between the book and the movie. Ben kills Susan. He stakes her way before they have any interaction with Barlow. So Susan is already dead. And in this, somehow Mark and Ben are in Guatemala, which they don't go to Central America in the book. They go to Mexico. So for some reason they're down in Guatemala. And somehow Susan, who is still alive after they've killed Barlow and all that stuff, she has followed them. And she is waiting in their house for them. She's laying on the bed and she is glammed up. It's really weird because all of the other vampires looked terrible. Like they just looked gross and sickly. You could tell it's very painful for him to have to listen to her tell him that she loves him and then have to stake her and kill her. So that's where it ends. I really like this movie and I don't mind that it's campy. That's probably part of why I like it. It's very different from the book in a lot of places, but it's not, I don't think it's terribly different. So I actually don't know Stephen King's view on this, if he likes it or doesn't like it. It's also a miniseries made for TV, so there are limitations. I think it still holds up. I know that part of it is because I watched it when I was much younger, and I think that we are more tolerant of things if we establish a like for them in our youth, you know, because then you have the nostalgia coming in. But all in all, I recommend that you see it. I heard that they're going to remake it, so I do recommend that you watch this one if you can, and then, you know, watch the remake later. Have a spooky day.